survival, survival with meaning, success, and significance. It then should come as no surprise that he loves whitewater rafting. To most of us, whitewater rafting would feel like we are up a creek without a paddle. To experienced rafters like Jim, it is the combination of proper planning and complete chaos. Is running a landscape business really that different? Jim's annual rafting trips have taken him to India, China, Peru, Chile, Siberia, and the Grand Canyon. Rafting, unlike any other sport, attempts to add a level of predictability to something as unpredictable as roaring water found in nature. It is an entire team working together, using an experienced guide and the proper gear, relying on training and understanding of the terrain to do the impossible. Jim brings the same mindset to his business each and every day. Rafting also brings humility. There will be times that even with the best of intentions and plan, you find yourself on the wet side of the boat. The unpredictability and danger is what gives it meaning. With each river that is survived, it causes you to seek further challenges, successes, and significance. Jim's river began unexpectedly at 15. He worked with a local gardener in Winnetka to install a landscape plan, which was developed by legendary designer Ralph Sinisvet. Because of Jim's inquisitive nature and passion, the gardener felt it would be a good idea for Jim and Ralph to meet. After a transformative meeting, Jim decided to change course and transferred to Illinois to pursue a degree in landscape architecture. Gripping his oar tight, he dipped it into the water. The rapids were not always calm over Jim's 46 years of running a landscape business. He almost lost his business at the age of 30. Then he realized landscape experience without business acumen would only get him so far. With each misstep, he took the time to learn, and Jim and his growing team self-corrected. Over time, he grew and grew. James Martin Associates became a full-service landscape company and moved into snow control. He then purchased Schwacke Stone in 2017. Rafting is never done alone. Jim has made it his mission to give back in the form of relentless volunteerism, philanthropic contributions, and political advocacy. Further, he encourages his employees to take leadership positions in the ILCA. He is a White Oak donor to the ILCA and later became the second ILCA member ever to donate $100,000 to the scholarship fund. Jim became the president of the National Association of Landscape Professionals. Usually that is the end of the river, but Jim decided to take on an even more impossible task of encouraging young people to join the landscape industry. He became the inaugural chairperson for the Future Landscape Industry Professionals Committee, or also known as FLIP. When he first formed FLIP, Jim had the idea of holding a focus group to better understand how the public viewed our industry. The committee sat behind a two-way mirror for unvarnished public feedback about our industry. We heard from three groups: the general public, parents of children, and finally high school students. All three groups were shown a positive video about the landscape industry and the professionals who work within it. The first two groups of adults ripped our industry to shreds. We winced. It was obvious Jim wanted to bang on the glass, correct them, and tell our story. It would have not mattered. The minds of these adults were made up. Then, when all seemed lost, we heard from that last group of students. Their faces lit up as they considered careers in our industry and the tremendous benefits we offer. Those reactions brought Jim back to when he was a 15-year-old and just needed a nudge from an industry icon. Life in this industry can be a raging river. It has ups and downs, twists and turns. If you focus only on the destination, you miss the survival, success, and significance that we pick up along the way. We are pleased to have Jim pause and set up camp with us tonight at this confluence of our rivers. We will enjoy some food, drinks, and laughs, for tomorrow he will round yet another bend and see where this river takes him. Ladies and gentlemen, your 2024 Person of the Year, Mr. Jim Martin.
The call that I had from Ashley, first of all, wow, Ashley. I'm not sure that when I hung up, I was a little bit stunned. And then when I talked to Scott, I said, I think you've made a mistake. And when I think about all the different comments that I wanted to make, four or five themes kind of came to mind. The company you keep, by the numbers, ecosystems, gratitude, and luck. So as we talk about the ecosystem, there's 7 or 8 or 9 chunks that I thought I would try and talk about. And Scott said that you have 7 minutes or less to do 7 decades. So, and when I look at the 7 decades, they start in the 60s. And 2 of those folks that started with me, Brother John and Cousin Joe, are here tonight. When we look back on what I'll call the decade timeline, so if you're looking at the screen, in the 60s is when I first met Ralph Sinisfeld. I wasn't sure that comment would be talked about tonight. Early in the 70s, I had the pleasure of meeting Frank Ross, an industry legend. You talk about by the numbers. Frank was one of the first trainers that ILCA and ILCA in those days brought, and I think I met some of our industry colleagues at some of those early events. I met Dick Brickman in the 80s. Jim King, a client for 41 years, a friend for 41 years, and the leader of all the river trips that we've gone on over these years. We met in the 80s. In the 90s, I had the pleasure of working with Frederick Hart, and national sculptor who did the Vietnam Veterans Memorial and did sculpting on the facade of the National Cathedral. In the 2000s, I had the pleasure of joining the board of ILCA, and then had the pleasure of being the president of Planet, and that was one of the high honors. In the 2000s, Scott Natter, who runs our Boulder County operation, joined. In the early 2000s was when we started CSLP. Where are some of my CSLP partners? The McAdams, Scott Hutchings, Gene Grant, the Bertogs. We had a 10-year run that was phenomenal, where we shared best practices 6 or 7 times a year. In the 2010s was when we decided that we needed to have a new home. We moved to Mundelein. That was when we acquired Schwacke Stone. In that ecosystem, none of it happens without the support and friendship and love of a family. I have 3 great daughters, 2 great son-in-laws. It was very nice for ILCA to set up tonight as a birthday party for my son-in-law, Chris Neville. Chris, where are you? Happy birthday, Chris. So when you think about family and the folks that are important to you, grandkids become one of those really important items. And tonight, Henry and Oliver, the Evanston grandkids, are here and joining and to help me celebrate. Thank you for being here. We talk about family, and I'm one of 7 kids, and myself and 4 of my siblings are here tonight, helping me celebrate. Thank you for being here. I have a couple nieces and nephews. Without your family to support you, none of it makes sense. And the company we keep, one of those themes. Go to the next slide, please. The partners and team. This honor is not for me. You don't stand up here without that ecosystem that supports you. Phil Loafman has been a colleague since college. 55 years. When we talk about by the numbers, you see a number of folks on the screen that have been partners. Tom Bolus, running our Mundelein operation for probably the last 5 or 7 years, and been a colleague and partner for the last 35. Scott, mentioned Scott earlier, 18 years. Scott, I met at the career days at, I think it was Michigan State, maybe almost 20 years ago now. Heidi Seibert, she still talks about when she interviewed at our facility in Prairie View, the plant quiz. Heidi, where are you? The plant quiz that we did out in freezing temperatures. 41 years. On our senior staff call, I said, Heidi, you've survived me for 41 years. And you're going to continue to hear more from Brian. 28 years. And Roberto Capetillo is in El Paso now, but he is the colleague that's helped me personally on projects and helped build more award-winning projects than any of our long-term players. We actually have stockholders. There's a long list of stockholders. I asked Tom to tell me how many years of service. We got to 457 years of service with our stockholders. And now we have a group at LID in Colorado, and then alumni. I'm going to try and step away because the lights are right in my eye. How many alumni are here tonight? I've been to some of these dinners where we have a large number of past JMA, James Martin Associates employees, and it's always been a highlight of the evening. When we talk about the CSLP partners, we did that for 10 years. 4 out of the 6 partners are here tonight and help me celebrate. You don't get to this point in an ecosystem or in an industry, and ours is a special industry, without having what I will call rich relationships with industry leaders, industry peers, business partners. They set the stage for what all of us do. I've got names like Peter Oram that I've looked up to for 35 years. Frank Russo has been I'll talk about him in a minute, about charitable giving. I've talked about the Fioris, the Fiori company. When I was an 18-year-old and we were out tagging plants in the old nursery, Mark and CJ took me under their wing. Kevin Kehoe helped create one of the industry-leading software companies, Aspire. We joined that 8 or 9 years ago. It's the company you keep that helps drive our different business and our different business success. Projects, we're here to acknowledge all the projects that are being awarded tonight, but there's 3 exceptional that I need to focus on. Steve Whipple and Barbara Whipple are at one of the tables. Raise a hand. They go back before I started the business. I was a landscape architect at the Winnetka Park District, and they were building a new home in Lincolnshire, one of the first major projects I ever had the opportunity to fully design and then install. And it included a tennis court. Who thought as a landscape contractor you'd build a tennis court? And the second generation, Steve has been our insurance agent for all of these many years. And now his son is taking care of our business. Jim and Sue King, again with the lights, there you are. 41 years of having that long time relationship. Jim has led and organized all those trips. Ashley did a great job of talking about the theme of the river trips. I won't talk about all the countries, but Jim and the group over the last 25 years, how many of you have spent 250 days with the same group of folks traveling the world 24/7 together? It's more than family. And the last thing, the most important thing that they did was introduce me to Linda Deeney. Miss Deeney, please wave your hand. Where's Rick? I owe Rick at least a drink. He helped pick the different photos and the different projects, and we've got a bunch of these magazine covers framed that we've captured over the years. We talk about ecosystems, our facilities. We lived in our facility in Vernon Hills for probably the first 10 years, and it was rough. And then we decided that we're going to create display gardens. We did those. We moved off that site about 5 years ago. We're now in Mundelein, and somewhere in between those two times, we wound up making our home in Boulder with the business that we bought from Phil. Again, Phil Open, did I acknowledge you earlier? Thank you. And in 2020, we acquired the land, our new home in Longmont. And it's been a great facility. And I always said, as I was a younger person, that I wanted to live on a property with a river. That property, we actually own a small piece of the St. Vrain River. Go to the next slide, please. Again, within the ecosystem of a business, we all have different things that drive us. Some people call it the why of a business. Some of you may have heard me say that I enjoy giving money away more than I enjoy making it. And during that period of time, we've either supported or given scholarships, almost 100 scholarships during the last 25 or 30 years. That has been a passion, I would say, for myself, and the most significant part of that is the last 2 or 3, the Phil Loafman Scholarship and the Sherry Dalzell Scholarship. Those go to children of our staff members, and those are the most rewarding kinds of scholarships to be giving. The charities that we've done, Frank Russo, where are you? You have helped about, I can't see Frank out there, but Frank, we used to have partner appreciation events, and we would do a lottery, and people would buy a ticket, and after we had raised maybe $500, somebody would kind of look at Frank, and Frank would say, "Well, I'll put in for another $500." So all of a sudden and we did a match to whatever was raised at our partner events. And then one of the folks that had drawn a ticket, we picked their ticket, and we wound up giving scholarships to a wide range of different favorite charities. And we did that for about 10 years. And Frank, if we donated 50, half of that was because Frank upped the total of whatever we spent, and then we did the match. You can see some of the organizations on the slide. University of Illinois has been, again, one of those pieces of the ecosystem. There's a competition in our office that often talks about, well, which school are you from, if we're interviewing for somebody. Iowa State, Tom Bowles, yeah. We have the Iowa State graduates in the group. But University of Illinois is where I started and where I went. And I've had a 55 years, again, by the numbers, kind of a continuing engagement. First as a student, I was a teaching assistant, visiting instructor when Terry Harkness went on sabbatical. Helped bring in as a student, we had a student committee that was helping pick the new department head. Bob Riley wound up being the department head, a great one for a long time. I became a member of the resource committee, and then about 2.5, 3 years ago, we started the James Martin Family Endowment there. And 2 years ago, was recognized as the Landscape Architecture Department Medal winner. The last couple comments are about the industry associations. This group is, when I was president of, at the time it was called Planet, it's now NELT. I would travel around, and I had the pleasure of speaking about the quality of ILCA. Our awards program is better than the National Awards Program. I would be at the meetings and the presentations, and our work set the standard. And then, when I was getting ready to talk tonight, I pulled a page out of the Grain Industry Guide. If you can go to the next slide, please. Whether it's past presidents, and there are 50 or 60 past presidents. How many past presidents are here tonight? If you are here, would you please stand up? You know, when I think about the folks, Matt Sinisvet's father was the person that helped introduce me to the industry. I became pals with Rusty. Rusty and I just juried a competition down at the University of Illinois 4 weeks ago. There's only one father and son, both with the same name, Scott and Scott. Tyler, Dan, Tim are names that show up on the past presidents list that I count as colleagues in the industry, that if I picked the phone up and called any one of them, I'd have access to them. The past persons of the year, again, Scott McAdam, Barb Rossborough. Barb, where are you? I saw you earlier. Bob Bertog, Greg Altman. Greg and I go back to my sophomore year in college. Ron Damgard. Is Lori here? Had a great relationship with Ron, and we compared notes about our 3 daughters. Peter Oram has been I'd say a role model for lots of businesses with the industry. Bruce Church, Joe Hodson came up and tapped me on the shoulder. Rick, John, and Charlie, the last 3 or 4 of these persons of the year. Those are the folks that have set the stage for this kind of an honor, and thank you very much. I'm humbled. I appreciate the honor. I don't think I'll have the opportunity to be honored in this way again. So I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.